Joining us now to discuss how something like that could even be plausible, Katherine Albrecht, a consumer privacy expert, more importantly, an email privacy expert. Katherine, we thank you for joining us here on America's Forum.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
Katherine, is something like this even possible?
Well, unfortunately, it is. The IRS is running antiquated software that they themselves would be unable to, that they themselves, if a company were trying to run this kind of software and say, hey, we lost all of our email records, the federal government would probably prosecute them for multiple violations. So the fact that they're using a totally out-of-date system that doesn't even allow the archiving of emails that employees want to save, I think that's the big problem. And I'm somehow getting my own self-feeding back, so just a note there.
I can understand the difficulty of that, and we will try to make accommodations with you, Katherine. Let me just ask you, if you could explain to us how a server stores emails, and if 2 years worth of emails were deleted off of that service, how likely would it be that only a handful of individuals would lose those emails? Would it not be more plausible that a whole company or an entire agency would lose the complete email system and archiving?
Well, again, I think we get back to the problem that the IRS's system is so antiquated. In fact, I think most people in the modern era would be stunned to hear that IRS officials back in 2010 and 2011, when the emails in question were created, the IRS was only allowing its 90,000 employees to store about 1,800 emails total, period. I get that many emails in a month. So they had a pretty awkward system that they were using, and indeed still are using, for employees to be able to save that email. So once you get, we may remember 10, 15 years ago in the old days when you would get these messages, your email account is full, delete some messages. So what the IRS employees had to do was take either outright delete them, at which point they were gone permanently from all records, or they could save them as an archive onto their hard drives on their personal computers. Now here's the crazy part. The archived emails you would assume would be the most important emails, but based on the IRS system, when you had an archived email and you saved it onto your hard drive, it was permanently deleted from all of the network systems within the IRS. So even that 6-month backup, we've been hearing a lot about the fact that they would back up all of the emails onto a tape and only keep it for 6 months, and then they would write over the tape and write over those 6 months of emails. Those weren't even the archived emails at all. So the IRS is now crying poverty. They're saying it would cost them $10 million to upgrade the system for their 90,000 employees. And what I think is very ironic here is it has already cost them $10 million and counting to be able to retrieve the emails that they've found so far. So is it possible that these emails vanish? Well, they all went onto hard drives, and that was really the backup system for the IRS, were these personally controlled hard drives. And that's a terrible backup system. Violates every industry standard practice for email redundancy, data redundancy, email retention. And the government, the federal government, is the one who, through multiple regulations, requires this kind of redundancy of us, and yet they don't feel a need to do it themselves.
Well, you mention government requirements and law. It is worth noting, Katherine, that the man in charge of our archives, the archivist of the United States, testified before a congressional committee that the Internal Revenue Service did not follow the law when it came to archiving emails. He points out that nobody told the National Archives of these failures within a computer system, but that federal agencies are required to report whenever their records are destroyed or even accidentally delayed. So is this a situation, Katherine, where you've got a government so large the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing? Can we chalk this up to mere incompetence or outmoded computer equipment?
Well, I could say it's certainly convenient to have emails vanish when an investigation of this magnitude is underway. I think the American people all understand that, yes, indeed, hard drives do crash, but I think also, particularly those working in IT departments in corporations know that if they were to lose data or if they were to fail to have redundant systems in place, that they could be prosecuted, they could be fined, they could face an immense government investigation themselves as to the criminal negligence, whether it's criminal that they intentionally deleted it or whether it's criminal that they simply failed to use industry best standards or best practices to preserve it and protect it. In any event, they would find themselves in deep hot water. So I really do think that this is an issue of the IRS being do as we say, not as we do, with companies and others, and themselves just not using proper procedures. When we talk about legality, there's actually a regulation, and talk about crazy. How many emails do IRS employees deal with on a daily basis? Well, the regulation currently says, and this must go back to the 80s, it says they have to print out a physical paper copy of every single email that is a government record or constitutes government business. Well, that's insane. Nobody's going to, the mountains of paper would stretch to the moon. So instead what they need to do is say, listen, if it's government business, even if it isn't, even if you are just using your IRS government email to email your sister-in-law, that's going to have to go into a permanent backup and backed up record and be stored.
Katherine Albrecht, we appreciate your insights and your expertise as an email privacy expert. Thank you so much for your thoughts today here on America's Forum. So we heard from Katherine. She said in part, this is just, well, the IRS computers are antiquated. Yeah, something else may be afoot. We'll talk more about it and have some of your comments coming up on America's Forum.